YouTube, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Today, guys, we are gonna do a prediction balance for the month of August. As you might see in our tier list, it is kind of diverse, and UBIL is now tier 1 for some reason. Now I do believe that, yeah, UBIL is a really powerful deck. Of course, with the Phantom of UBIL alongside it, it's really a crazy card to begin with. Regardless, for me, I think it is kind of diverse. It's better this than tier elements way back when it was tier 0, and then the rest are all tier 3. Also, Fire King Snake Eyes is still here. It's one of the top decks as well. It's just UBIL just wants to be next beside it. Then we have Branded, which is a pretty cool deck, and then some other decks in the tier 3. So with this, our prediction ban list will take up some of the cards in the tier list and some other cards that we want to release from the ban list. So let's start off this prediction ban list. For our category, we'll have unlimited, semi-limited, limited, and then the ban section of our content. So first and foremost, we have here the unlimited section. We have If the World Chalice Justiceshire, Typhrim Gear Gamma, Fusion Destiny, Emergency Teleport, Sprite Blue or Sprite Jet, Water Enchantress, and that's basically it. So I will explain also, of course, on why I placed this one as one of the cards. First and foremost, we have If the World Chalice Justiceshire. So this is actually 3 copies in the OCG. It was not really impactful because I think majority of the people know how this card can be countered, so it's not really like formidable. But in a best of 1 format for Master Duel, it might be crazy enough to be maybe limited in the deck. Regardless, there are a ton of cards that you need to have for this combo to work. The Chalice would be a really good card in a best of 1 format. Next up, we have Typhrim Gear Gamma. Now, I'm still going to promote on Gamma on 3 copies with the current situation that we have nowadays, where a ton of staples are basically hand traps in the deck, especially with the higher tier decks. I think the 3rd copy of Gamma would be so much useful. And you know, it won't be that bricky if ever that would be the case. Driver is the only brick card in your deck anyways. Furthermore, I think it would also allow people to play a little bit safer than just dumping a copy of Maxi during the draw phase. So think about that. Or what if Konami would consider in banning Omega, and then we can have the 3 copies of Gamma. Now, Omega isn't really a formidable card at the moment, but it can be an oppressive card if ever you pair it with the Spater, having to remove 2 cards from your opponent's hand during a turn. Regardless, that is just one consideration as well. Fusion Destiny is the next card. 3 copies of Fusion Destiny might be a little bit okay for rogue decks at this point on, but I do consider, or I would think of as well, maybe heroes will capitalize on the 3rd copy of Fusion Destiny and will pop off as well. I do think that Destroyer Phoenix is kind of like Kashtira's, where if you have 1 Kashtira monster in the field, it is quite impactful, and you can't do anything else unless you remove a copy of, or remove that Kashtira on the field before you combo it off. So it's like that with Destroyer Phoenix. Next up, we have Emergency Teleport on 3 copies. I still want this on 3 copies. Psychic Dex hasn't been in the meta for quite some time. I think it's about time that we'll have Emergency Teleport back on 3 copies. Although it might be strong enough for some other decks as well that can capitalize on the Psychic Tuner monsters on the field. But with the current meta nowadays, I think it's kind of diverse, so having a copy of E-Tally isn't half bad. Sprite Blue or Sprite Jet. Now, the reason why I'm not even adding Sprite Starter here, it's easy enough to counter if your opponent start off or normal summon a level 2 monster on the field. You can just remove that, and then it's up to them if they want to use another card to start their combo. If you have a starter, it's basically a 1-card combo to most of your tricks right there for Sprite. And I'm not even considering in placing Nimble or the Frogs back to 2 or more than 2 copies. It's crazy enough at its own, and I'm not sure if even we're gonna have Totally Awesome back, because Totally Awesome is a really broken card on a best of 1 format. But I would consider in putting Blue and Jet back to 3 copies at least, or one of those cards to be on 3 copies. At least Sprites are a little bit better nowadays. Then lastly, for our unlimited section, we have here Water Enchantress of the Temple. We already got the Rite of the Arbus here on 3 copies, so why not have this on the 3rd copy? So it would make some other rogue decks happy, just to be more consistent with getting a hold of their Rite of Arbus here, I would say. So that is basically our unlimited section there, guys. Let us talk about our semi-limited. Okay, so for our semi-limited section here, we have a couple of cards, and I know from the comment section right now that you are not happy with the first card that's on the list. So we have here Fire King Kirin or Fire King Ponix. We have here Mathmech Circular, the Bishills, the Rollback, and my friend Purely. So Fire King Kirin has been a month old in Master Duel and has been really good with fire decks in general. Not to mention, the reason I'm putting this is because, first of all, the Fire King selection pack is almost going to be out from the market, and what we usually know about that, and I think Decade always talks about it as well, if a selection pack has been removed from the game, there are some cards that's going to be added into the ban list. So as I skimmed through all the cards in the selection pack, I can't seem to point out what other cards they're going to include in the ban list. So Fire Kings is the only meta deck that is kind of relevant here. There's no point in even putting semi-limited for the Garunix because they're playing on one copy in Snake Eyes Fire Kings. If you're using a pure version where people are just using 2 copies of this, so the next best thing is Kirin. It can special summon a monster and pop another card on the field, which is kind of crazy of an effect. Ponix, on the other hand, might be, of course, in a pure version, people are using 3 copies. This might actually lessen the consistency of the deck. But in a Snake Eyes version, they are using 2 copies, so might as well gonna have this on 2 copies. I think the more significant Fire King there is the Kirin rather than Ponix. Next up, we have Mathmech Circular. Like I said, Mathmech is still one of the powerful cards out there, and if you know how this deck really works, then you are good in grinding ranks. Bishills. Since we have here Yubel as one of the top meta decks, I think it's about time to have a second copy of some of the Bestial monsters. Having to have an extra body on the field and removing another dark monster or light monster from the graveyard is kind of significant and kind of impactful as well. So at least we have a fighting chance against those kind of meta decks, especially up against branded or Yubels. So next up, we have Rollback. I always wanted to place Rollback on semi-limited, and the reason for this is Trap Decks has always capitalized on Rollback and its own effect, especially when I grind during the Exi Cup with Paleo and Labyrinth. Having to copy a normal trap card in the graveyard and then return it with a copy of the Paleo monster or the Paleo trap card, it's kind of oppressive in some sense, but it's just basically for trap decks, and I'm not sure if Konami would even consider in placing this in the ban list. Then lastly, we have here my friend Pearly. This is kind of questionable though, since we have already on Purely on 2 copies and Lily on 2 copies, so I'm not sure if they would even consider in adding more cards into the fire for the Purely archetype. This is just an addition for the semi-limited section. Yeah, it's basically just for fun. And then that is basically for our semi-limited section. For our last part or last bit for this video, we have the limited section. So for the limited section, we have only a couple of cards here. First of all, we have here Super Poly. Now, I've been talking about Super Poly before Yubel came out. Honestly, guys, you didn't hear me. So here we are again. Before, I would consider Super Poly in semi-limited because it was kind of an OP card, having not to respond to it, and your opponent can just remove 2 cards or 1 to 2 cards on your field. Now, with the use of Yubel, it can board wipe your entire field. There's one card that is a continuous spell that allows them to gain access to Super Poly. Was another good thing though. Super Poly on its own right on 3 copies is just an overpowered card. It's way broken with the Yubels. I'm pretty sure of it. Yeah, there's a ton of instances where board wiping is just easy, and then removing those monsters on the field is really significant. But like I said before, people did not hear me. Super Poly was a crazy card. So yeah, but let's see about this, guys, on the next ban list. Next up, we have here Flamberge or Poplar. Now, Poplar is basically a really good card on 2 or more copies, depending on the deck that you're using. But on 1 copy, maybe it's still okay though. I mean, people are still using this on a Fire King format. Having 1 copy of Poplar is still okay. Flamberge might be significant enough because at least the Snake Eyes deck in general is on tier 3, I think, at the moment. So maybe they will be off, or there'll be more cautious enough in using Flamberge or Poplar if ever it can be stopped. So that's one thing there. Although it will not impact Fire Kings generally, but it will remove them from the tier list for Snake Eyes in general, or as a whole deck without the Fire Kings. The next one we'll have Macrocosmos. So Macrocosmos hasn't been semi-limited or even limited. Funny thing, so a ton of Floodgates has been limited, and this is the only card or one of the cards that hasn't been. So might as well, we're gonna add this one here since majority of the Floodgates has been nerfed, and it is a powerful card. I think that's basically it for our limited section here. So for our banned section, we don't have any cards, to be honest. I think the diversity in our tier list is quite good. I am happy, and I think majority of the people are even happy with the current tier list or the current meta that we are now. And I'm sure in the next month we'll have another OP deck. I think it's way better that YuGoh is on tier 2 or tier 1 at the moment, alongside Snake Eyes. That way, it's not really like an oppressive thing for YuGoh, and people are still going to use Snake Eyes and Fire Kings and some other minor decks, and it can still go up against YuGoh as well. But you know, the next YuGoh will be a much greater impact to the game when Fiendsmith comes in. So that would be something, and I think a majority of the decks out there would benefit greatly from Fiendsmith, not just YuGoh. That is basically our prediction ban list for today, guys. If you are unhappy with the prediction ban list, or if you want to talk about some other cards that you want to add in the ban list, comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Keep safe, good luck. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. Goodbye, guys.